Hey there folks, people on the internets far and wide. Hope everybody is having a great start to their 4th of July weekend. This is Grant, your host of Red Pill Thoughts. What I want to address today is something a little bit different than what we normally do. So I'm going to be reacting to some common memes, posts, just kind of InfoWar material that the left is putting out now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. So if you live under a rock and you haven't heard the news, the Supreme Court decided that Roe versus Wade was unconstitutional, and they returned the power to adjudicate abortion and create laws around abortion and things like that to the states, which I think it always should have been. But the left has been going crazy, and even a lot of people that I know are more conservative have been going crazy as well. So I'm going to present to you some of the most common memes, posts, sentiments, whatever you want to call them, going around the internet, and just kind of my reactions to them and how you can kind of combat this sort of misinformation info war that's been going on. Again, we're on YouTube and Rumble. Please give us a like and subscribe if you like this sort of content. Well guys, before we start, I want to make sure you're armed with some legit information first, because a lot of these leftists will throw statistics at you that are just pulled out of their rear end. They don't make sense and they're false. So here's what I'm going to go over with you. This was a 2004 study, so it is a little bit dated, but abortions have actually fallen in prevalence since then. So it's actually probably, not as big of a problem as it was, but let's assume the rates of things happening were about the same. So this is a 2004 study by the Guttmacher Institute, where they surveyed about 1,200 women who had gotten abortions and asked them the reasons why. So, percentage-wise, we have it breaks down a little bit like this. 0.5% cited they were a victim of rape. 7% cited either fetal health problems or physical health problems of their own. 86% cited what would amount to an elective issue. So it would interfere with their education, they're not mature enough to raise a child, they don't want to be a single mother, done having children, can't afford a baby, not ready for a child. Ooh, that done having children one. That is chilling, because those are people that are already mothers. They've already had children. They know what that child is, and they're still doing it. Ugh, yikes. And the other 6% was other. So with this study, and this is less than what I've seen in a lot of statistics, in regards to the elective abortion proportion. 86% of women got it because they just didn't want to do it. And given more recent studies, social media trends, social trends, like shout your abortion on Twitter, all that sort of stuff, it's likely a much higher percentage that's elective now. So anytime a leftist comes at you saying, oh, it's mostly rape or incest, it's mostly the health of the mother, blah, 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 blah. No, it's mostly not. It's mostly because they just don't want to have a fucking kid. Oh my gosh. I've seen this one going around a lot. If you would sacrifice your grandmothers, you would go to Applebee's 2 years ago. You can't call yourself pro-life. I mean, let's be honest. The terms pro-life and pro-choice are super outdated. And anytime the left throws around pro-life, it's like, oh yeah, you're pro-life? Well, what about this situation when people die? It's like, dude, that's not the same thing as abortion. That's a total straw man. Something like this, that has to do with, the disease that I don't know if I can mention here on YouTube. You guys all know what I'm discussing. But, I mean, it's a total straw man. Unfortunately, this one I can't go too in depth because, it's a new channel. I don't want to get banned right off the bat. So we'll see. I'll probably do a bigger explanation on this one for our viewers on Rumble, though. Oh my. And here we have one that is particularly dumb. And I'm ashamed to admit it, but this was actually posted the first time I saw it by a family member. So that's always fun. One side of my family is much more liberal and one side's much more conservative. I kind of fall a little bit in the middle, of course, but erring a little bit to the right, more on the side of freedom, of course. But this whole notion is just ridiculous. Like, all of these things they said about the founding fathers in this meme are verifiably false. I spent about 3 minutes on Google. All of it's false. Every single bit of it. And even if any of them were true, what impact does that have on their ability to recognize the danger of putting power in too few hands? Or, how does that impact how brilliant it was to install checks and balances? Or to, build in a system of constitutionality to prevent mob rule, things like that. But let's go through them one by one. So the most egregious one is the first one about atoms, right? So not only does that have absolutely nothing to do, like what the fuck do atoms and atomic chemistry have to do with founding the country? Nothing. It's saying they were ignorant and stupid. But not only is that claim totally wrong, but atoms were first theorized by the Greeks thousands of years ago. And then the knowledge was republished in 1808. And the theory had been around since 1800, but it finally got around to being published in 1808. And a lot of the founding fathers were still alive at that point. In fact, you had presidents like John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, who were, well into their older years, but they were still alive. A lot of the founding fathers were still alive. That is ridiculous, and it's just chronologically incorrect. All right, the other one is they practice the four humors. Now, admittedly, I don't know too much about it, although it's more of a medieval sort of way of looking at health. And that hadn't been mainstream since like the 1600s. So that's just ridiculous to say that that's what they practice as their healthcare. Come on, like anesthesia was right around the corner. They had a pretty good concept of anatomy at that point. So again, completely false. They had no idea dinosaurs existed is the next claim. That is probably not true. Dinosaur fossils have been, in the record for European paleontologists since I believe 1677 was the first time they were found and described. I don't know if dinosaurs themselves were a scientific classification at that point. I think that wasn't until the early 1800s. But again, some founding fathers were probably still alive at that point. So I'll give that one a partial truth, just because they would not have been acquainted with Triceratops and Tyrannosaurus.
So the next claim that they only had muskets, completely false. Totally and utterly false.
There was something called the puckle gun. There was the Stoffler revolver. There were a bunch of different repeating rifles and pistols, and there was even a 4-barreled pistol at that time, all of which were invented either a few years prior to the founding fathers starting the country or within a couple hundred years prior. So again, this is complete nonsense. All right, and the next claim, of course, that they considered women to be literal property, as it's put exactly in that quote. That is ridiculous. I mean, yeah, of course, women were kind of second-class citizens at that point. They weren't really allowed to vote. But to say that they were regarded as property is ridiculous. Maybe that's a reference to slavery, I'm not sure. But just in terms of the founding fathers and their personal relationships, that's completely bananas. Martha Washington, George Washington's wife, was a fierce woman. This woman stood 5 feet tall, and that's generous. She was probably like 4'10", 4'11". George was 6'3", a giant for his time. She was well known to be so fierce, she would yank his tie down to look face to face with him, pull him down on her level, to chastise him, to scream at him, to get in his face. Like, this lady was not to be effed with at all. And that's even not including how Abigail Adams, John Adams' wife, was pretty much the mastermind behind his presidency too. So yeah, I mean, Thomas Jefferson, he knocked up a bunch of slaves and all that stuff. So maybe that's what it's in reference to. But the fact that they consider women property, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous and false. And the last claim is probably the funniest. They would have considered a light bulb to be witchcraft. Yeah, light bulbs weren't exactly like around then, but they did understand, Benjamin Franklin chiefly, that electricity did come from lightning, that it was a thing, and they certainly wouldn't have thought it was witchcraft. Like, these were very learned men, they were smart, a lot of them were scientifically minded. They would have understood what a light bulb was. So this one is my favorite, from my favorite socialite, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is just so stunning, so brave, so brilliant. Oh my gosh, I hope she runs for president. She's so stunning and so brave. But this is ridiculous, saying that, abortion will target marginalized people more. It'll target people of color more. Come on. Saying that it's going to lead to people dying. It's like, it's literally going to prevent children from being aborted. How is it going to lead to death? That logically is just out of complete left field. It makes no sense at all she has. There is something to be said that banning something creates a black market for that good or service. So I don't doubt that a lot of the women that do get abortions that aren't willing to jump states might get it in less than safe conditions. So that's at least partially true. But to sit there and act like a state that has stricter abortion laws will negatively affect people of color is insane. Not only are people of color who are African American, Hispanic American, they tend to be more religious and thus more pro-life, but getting rid of abortion and the incredibly eugenicist institution of Planned Parenthood will actually be a good thing. If you look at the statistics, African American babies in this country are aborted at about a rate of 4 to 1 compared to white babies. If anything, it'll definitely increase the population of the black community, which oddly enough has stayed about 13% since Roe v. Wade was a thing. So I don't know why that is, but it's just kind of a big coincidence. If you look at the eugenicist roots of Planned Parenthood, how they're strategically put up into impoverished African American neighborhoods, how there were experiments to remove black women's uteruses, all sorts of crazy stuff. So, and the last part of that, till abortion rights are restored. Abortion's not a right. It's the whole reason Roe v. Wade got overturned by the Supreme Court, you idiot. It's not a right. Okay, abortion was deemed, constitutionally protected under the 14th Amendment. But if you read the 14th Amendment, it does not include anything about the right to privacy. It's due process and naturalized citizens. That's what it talks about. So it was a huge stretch to include abortion under the right of medical privacy. It was an even bigger stretch to include that under the 14th Amendment. It's the whole reason Roe v. Wade got overturned. It's not constitutional. It's bad law. Ruth Bader Ginsburg even said herself, it's founded on bad law and it's going to be overturned. That's the hero of the modern left, to the abortion crazed left. But even she knew it was ridiculous. But that Ocasio-Cortez, she's just pandering to her base, despite the fact that I genuinely think she's kind of, at this point, controlled opposition. She didn't really start off like that, but that's beside the point. That's a topic for another video. Anyways, moving on. The condescending Wonka meme. As an internet old schooler, I still have a lot of love and appreciation for this sort of meme in this format, but it's just applied in such a stupid way. I mean, look, again, I'm not going to touch the whole mask, coof thing, because that's a little too spicy for YouTube. Again, the Rumble version of this video will probably have that thrown in there at the end. But saying that wanting to charge women with murder for removing microscopic eggs, Okay, this speaks to two things. One, most of the abortion laws, if not, I'll double check, but I believe it's all of them. I'm just saying most because I'm not 100% sure because I haven't fully checked. But all that I know do not wish to prosecute the mother. They're prosecuting the doctor. Okay? You know, a lot of these women are fed the lie that abortion's fine, that it's just a clump of cells. You can't really blame them. I mean, you can, but not to the point of culpability for homicide. So the legal charges would fall squarely on the doctor or the clinic itself, not the mother. So completely fallacious. And then you think about removing eggs or a microscopic embryo. Those aren't abortions. Like, the left does this all the time. They'll say, oh, well, I'm going to have an ectopic pregnancy, and what then? I won't be able to remove it, and then I'll die? It's like, no. Not only is an ectopic pregnancy not an abortion, but an ectopic pregnancy threatens the health of the mother. So of course it's going to be allowed, even in a state like Texas, which is a little too strict in my opinion because it doesn't allow exceptions for rape or incest. But it's just, this is so bananas. And it just shows how the left consistently strawmans and doesn't actually take on a solid argument. It makes me think that, like, memes like this make me think that people on the left genuinely don't understand what people on the right think. They just live in their echo chambers and they just can't really think outside of them. Oh man, this one is great. If you're so pro-life, why do you support school shootings? Oh my gosh, this just gets so tiring at some point. Like, conservatives do not support school shootings. They just understand that 98% of school shootings happen in gun-free zones. They understand that gun laws, if the ones on the books were to prevent school shootings, there'd be no school shootings. And I guarantee that when more gun laws are passed, which they've already been passed, there's already going to be de facto red flag laws in this country, which is fucking terrifying. But we're going to see school shootings happen regardless. What then? But it also, harkens back to what I was mentioning earlier, where it shouldn't be pro-life and pro-choice. It should be anti-abortion or pro-abortion, because pro-life causes these weirdo leftists to just think, oh, so you're against death across the board. How can you be for the death penalty? How could you be for foreign wars? Okay, first off, Democratic leaders are just as in favor of foreign wars as the Republican ones. But also, a lot of people that are pro-life don't like the death penalty. I'm personally not in favor of the death penalty in most cases. But it just is such an egregious straw man that it's really just a semantic game. And it's another reason I think we should just throw these terms pro-choice and pro-life out entirely. You know, pro-choice. The choice to do what? Get an abortion. That's like the same argument as people saying, oh no, the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. It's like, the states' right to do what? What? What was the state's right to do? And I get there was a representation issue, but come on, it's just a softening and a euphemistic way of saying what you really want to say. You're pro-abortion. So I think we need to really start using that language, because the language we're using now is on the leftists' terms. It's framed their way, and it's ceding ground without even realizing that we're doing it. Oh, and then we come to this one. Time to ban Viagra, because if it's God's will to have a baby, so is your limp dick. Really? How did you guys who made this meme know I suffer from ED? I am so triggered right now. Oh God, got a little personal there with you guys. Anyways, this is ridiculous. Erectile dysfunction is a legitimate medical condition. It may be caused by, poor diet, low testosterone, pesticides in our food, all sorts of different things that our society suffers from. Laziness, lack of working out. But to say a medical condition shouldn't be treated because that's God's will, and that's equating that with having a baby, not having an abortion, like, come on. Yeah, let's just stop treating heart attacks while we're at it. Let's stop chemotherapy. Like, where do you want this to end? And that just shows they think abortion really is in healthcare. It's a healthcare, and they also think healthcare is a right, but again, that's another matter. But they roll abortion into healthcare. It's not healthcare, considering the vast majority of it's elective. I mean, if 90% of cancer operations were elective and not advised by a doctor, would we really consider it the same? No, because that's crazy. because it's a life-threatening condition. You know, I can't with these. It's literally almost too much. Oh, and this is the last one I'm gonna do, but these Handmaid's Tale ones are just, they're ridiculous. And I suggest everybody who's still partaking in Facebook to go join the group Everything I Don't Like is Handmaid's Tale. It's fantastic. It's got a great collection of memes like this. This is ridiculous. Like, we literally have been joking in more kind of right-leaning circles that the left is always mentioning this show in what was before a book called The Handmaid's Tale, which is kind of a dystopian future where women are basically second-class citizens and broodmares, but they think this is what a Handmaid's Tale is like. Not being able to abort your baby after a certain amount of weeks is apparently The Handmaid's Tale. It's just the most stereotypical, hyperbolic, and really unimaginative thing that people can say. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like this one book that's just like not only is it not just like it, but really, how unimaginative and dull are you that you think this is some like revelatory comparison that you're making? It's lazy, it's stupid, it's poorly thought. It's just over and over. The left has shown itself to just not really be critical thinkers, and that's why I think these Handmaid's Tale memes really embody kind of the best that the left has to offer, or should I say the worst, because they just take something that is so played out, that is so dumb and so hyperbolic, and they just say, oh no, this is exactly like this. This is just like that. You know, it's insane. Well, guys, there you have it. Some of my favorite awful memes, thoughts, info, and material from the left that's been going around since Roe v. Wade passed. Hopefully my analyses can really help you when you're wasting your time on the internet arguing with strangers, family, friends, what have you. You know, it's just sometimes when you see something so stupid, it's hard to like actually process what to say, because you're like, it almost breaks your brain. So hopefully I helped out with that today. So if you like content like this, please be sure to like, drop a comment, give us a subscription, anything you can to help us in the algorithm, because we are a new growing channel. Every view helps. So catch us on YouTube, catch us on Rumble. Thank you so much, guys.